Good day everyone, Trainer Maxim with you. Thank you very much for joining me for this podcast. Today I'm going to tell you about the Tensegrity system. It's a fascinating field of physics we use a lot in gymnastics. Of course, thank you everyone who supports my channel. Thank you so much. Your comments, your suggestions are greatly appreciated. Also your generosity, donations, super thanks. And of course, my support angels. Thank you. Thank you everyone. Tensegrity system, it sounds scary, but in reality it's a very easy concept, and we use this concept in gymnastics a lot. What is a tensegrity system? Tensegrity system is a system comprised of solid components interconnected by the flexible components. For example, my body is a tensegrity system where my bones are connected by the muscles. Or bridges, tensegrity system, where the concrete pillars connected by the steel ropes. And in those systems, the workload is never carried by one single component. The workload is always redistributed across the system. And even more, it can be changed by adjusting the amount of compression or elasticity in the flexible components. What I mean by this? Let's have a look at my example I've prepared for you. Here I have my 20-pound kettlebell, and I attach my elastic band to this kettlebell. What I'm going to do, I'm going to try to lift this kettlebell using the contractile force of my biceps. In other words, I will be shortening my biceps, creating the force in hope to lift 20 pounds. I'm strong enough, I can really lift 20 pounds, not a problem, but see if it's going to work for me. I'm standing here, I'm engaging my biceps, I'm pulling, and as you can see, I cannot really lift my kettlebell because simply my force I created with the biceps got lost to the flexibility of this band. And the more I pull, the more I stretch the band. And that's where the Hooke's law comes in play. Mr. Hooke discovered that the amount of deformation in flexible components is directly proportional to the force applied. In other words, the more I pull, the more I stretch it. And it's only legit when I don't exceed the elasticity limit of the flexible element. Because in reality, actually a very interesting thing, we have two kinds of deformation. We have the plastic deformation and elastic deformation. Elastic deformation, what you're seeing right now. Elastic means I deform the object, but for as long as my force is present, that object is going to stay there. But the moment I discontinue applying force, the object will bounce to its previous shape. So that is the elastic deformation. Plastic deformation begins when I exceed the structural elasticity limit for this band, and I pull so hard that after some point the deformation inside the band becomes permanent and it's not going to bounce back. So when I exceeded the elasticity limit of the object, we're entering the area of the plastic deformation, where the deformation becomes permanent. And it's another very important fact to keep in mind. We will talk about this later. So we have the elastic deformation and plastic deformation. Elastic deformation, it's when the length of the object bounces back to its normal after the force is gone. And plastic deformation, where the length stays there and becomes a permanent state of that object, even after force is gone. So just keep it in mind. I will tell you about this later, why it matters. But for now, let's go back to my example. So how I can actually lift the dumbbell, the kettlebell off the floor? Well, it's very easy. If for some reason, let's say, I managed somehow, some way, to make my elastic band very rigid, inflexible to the point. And for that matter, I have my belt here. I can use the band like this. This band has zero flexibility in it. So you might have already predicted the outcome, right? Now, if I engage my biceps, I will easily lift 20 pounds off the floor because the object I'm using to transfer my force is not flexible, it's absolutely rigid. Therefore, any amount of force I create with my biceps will be easily transferred through the object through the kinetic link, so-called, onto the object I intend to lift. In my case, it's a kettlebell. So if I engage my biceps a little bit more, I will lift it higher. And there is no loss of force transferred from my biceps onto the object, because this band is absolutely solid, rigid. There is zero flexibility to that. And that is an example of the tensegrity system at play. That's how our human body works as well. We have the bones connected with the muscles. And sometimes we want to transfer the force from one muscle through the tension of other muscles in the body onto some part of the body, let's say lower leg or the spine. And I'm going to demonstrate the tensegrity system in action for our gymnastics elements. We all know the hollow body hold rocking. When you take the hollow body position and start rocking. Let me clear out the space and I will show you what I mean. We all like that element, the core drill, the main drill in gymnastics to make your core more solid, more robust, and overall to improve the functionality of the body. What it looks like, I go down on the floor, I take this position here, and I start rocking with the legs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Similarly, no part in my body is moving separately. And that's where I applied the tensegrity system principle. What I mean by this. For example, I don't know this principle. I've never heard this. I've never met Maxim. Never heard this crazy talk about physics and gymnastics. What do you mean? Just do some exercises, right? Well, not quite. I went down, I took the position, and Maxim is asking me to rock my body using my legs, because that's what we do in the hollow body hold. We're kind of creating the momentum and rocking the stable torso with the weight of the legs. Just creating that momentum and roll with this. So I go down and try to do the same. Okay, now I'm doing a simple exercise for the legs. Legs up and down, and nothing is rocking in my body. How come? Well, that's because I'm not aware of the tensegrity system principle. Had I been aware of this, I would have done better. How? Let's have a look. So, in essence, for my legs to go up, I'm using the hip flexors here. They're attached to the spine here, your iliacus, psoas, and other muscles. They're using the spine as a base. They're attached to the legs here, and when they contract, they pull the leg up. 1. Now your hip flexors are very tense. And in order to bring the leg down, you'll be using the back muscles of the leg, hip extensors. They will be pulling here and down, and they're attached to the pelvis here. So if I let those muscles work on their own terms, individually, flexion, relaxation, flexion here, then my legs will be doing just up and down movement. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm not transferring any force I'm creating with the back leg muscles, because simply my hip flexors are very flexible or even relaxed. Had I just made them tense a little bit, just like with the example, in my example with the kettlebell, when I substituted the elastic band with a very rigid band, see what's going to happen. For example, I'm holding it and I'm telling my central nervous system, okay, let's bring the leg down. Okay, for that we need to use the muscles of the back of the leg here, hip extensors. Let's put the hip into the extension. But at the same time, I will not let my hip flexors go. I will keep the tension of the hip flexors here and see what's going to happen. It's here, I'm keeping the tension here. I'm trying to bring my leg down. And now I'm able to transfer the force I created with the muscles of the back of the legs through the tense hip flexors onto my spine. What happened? The back muscles of the leg, they shortened and tried to pull the leg down. 1. Okay, because my hip flexors did not let go, I kept the tension in the hip flexors. Then force from these guys was traveling through the lever of the leg, through the tension of the hip flexors. And since the hip flexors are attached to the spine here, that force affected my spine, grabbed my spine, and moved it up through the tension of the hip flexors. One more time. Here, hip flexor tense, legs, hip flexor tense. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can see I'm not trying to do mini crunches, or my torso on its own is trying to perform any movements to facilitate this. Nothing of the kind, right? Because I'm simply making my torso stable by engaging muscles of the spinal column, our favorite concept, tall spine, by engaging the diaphragm muscles, by engaging the core. So all those other muscles are making my torso one solid lever. Now, that lever, under these conditions, is very easy to be rocked by the back leg muscles, which would be transferring their force through the tension of the hip flexors here. So now, when my torso is rock solid and not doing any separate movements, the hip flexors are tense, I'm commanding my legs to go down, 1, and I'm transferring this force, that contractile force of my muscles in the back of the leg, through the tension of the hips onto the spine. Because the spine is rigid, it's very easy for these guys to transfer that energy on the spine, and the spine rocks up. And after, I'm kind of relaxing the back leg muscles, and the gravity takes me down. And after, I'm engaging them again, and I'm maintaining this rocking state. Therefore, whole body rocking. And that's how we do this. But if we are not familiar with the Tensegrity system, with these principles, then we start faking this movement. We start doing something of this kind. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Because my students typically see me doing this, and they spotted two facts. The legs are going up, and the legs are going down, and the torso is going up. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're pushing the legs down, letting the hip flexors go, and engaging the core to crunch the body in order to create the impression of the torso going up. But the whole point of this exercise is to learn how to transfer the contractile force, insignificant contractile force of some muscles onto the torso, while the torso is doing absolutely nothing. So in essence, the torso is just passively being rocked by those tiny muscular engagement. Because we're using the Tensegrity system, we transfer that contractile force through the rigid component of that system onto the other components to be lifted, just like we did with the kettlebell. Now you can see, if I'm not aware of this concept, if I'm not familiar, if I don't understand this concept, it will take me a while to figure out how to make the body appear absolutely motionless on its own while it's rocking in space with the legs. My arms in one line with the torso, my shoulders are open, my core is just stabilizing, spinal muscles stabilizing, nothing moves. It's just tiny force from the legs plus momentum rocks my body. And that's how in gymnastics we move the solid torso. That's why we need this primary component to be mastered to the utter extent. Because if we don't understand the idea of the force transfer onto the torso while the torso is passively held in a good place, then no handstands, no L-sits, no presses, no nice routine. And of course, sometimes we can let the torso go when the routine or the element requires, but we need to know all those concepts and switch back and forth. The same is true for the handstands. When you're entering the handstands, the spine, once it's upright, more or less, cannot be, let's say, I'm entering the handstands in this way here. The spine itself, I have zero tools to get my spine more around the shoulders in order to get a better line. And I'm going to make a video of this, how to make it happen. But for now, just we need to understand the concept. The torso doesn't have the tools to move itself back and forth. The torso can just change its shape. It can get crunched, it can get arched, but it cannot really move itself forward because there are no muscles attached to something else and to the torso in order to do that. So with the handstands, when we're essentially trying to arch or crunch excessively, and so on and so forth. Instead, we would like to use the Tensegrity system principles here for the handstands as well. We would like to transfer the power of the upper trapezius and upper back muscles onto the torso through the tension of the lower back muscles. And how we do this? For example, I'm keeping the shoulders open, one, and you know from my other videos that for this element is the lower trapezius is responsible here and serratus anteriorus here. So I'm doing this, holding them. Now, if I'm performing the shrug, the good shrug, with the open shoulders in place, with the engagement of the lower trapezius in place, with the engagement of serratus anterior in place and other muscles, if I do that and I shrug, here's what's going to happen. And shrug, one. See how my torso went back? Because I did not let the tension go, that those muscles, those kinetic links, they stayed rigid, and by doing so, I was able to transfer the force I created, the contractile force I created with the upper trapezius, through those rigid links onto my spine, and I moved my spine back. For the handstands, it will translate into better alignment when you jump up, good, keep the shoulders open, and you shrug nicely with the shoulders open, and by doing so, you will be affecting the torso in this way. Torso will be tilted over the shoulders because you're keeping the tension in the middle spine. Let's say your spine is tall, rib cage is expanded, all the other things in place, and the tension in the mid-back muscles is still there. So that tension will be transferring the contractile power of the upper trapezius up, like this. One, dragging your spine into more open position. Let's say you go here, take the position, shoulders open, you press, and the torso is transferred a little bit more over the shoulders. Because again, the torso cannot go on its own over the shoulders. There is no muscles grabbing your back here and pulling over the shoulders. You can only either crunch or arch because all the muscles along the torso are attached to the torso. They can pull only along the torso. So we need something else. And in our case, something else was our head, upper trapezius attached to the torso, and that's how we transferred the force from the upper trapezius onto the torso and drag the torso back. Hadn't we done this, hadn't we just lost all the tension in the mid-back muscles while standing, let's say I'm here, open shoulders, and I'm just shrugging. 1, 2, 3, and nothing happens. I'm letting this tension go here. By letting this tension go, just like with my in my example with the dumbbell, I'm pulling on the elastic band, and all my force got lost to the flexibility of that elastic band. Same here. All my contractile force I created with the upper trapezius is lost to the flexibility of my mid-back muscles, which are incapable of grabbing my spine and pulling it over the shoulders. And that is the Tensegrity system in action. The examples are many. We can do the Tensegrity, we can do any other elements like planches. In my videos about planches, I talked about transfer of power. It's L-sit, it's everywhere in gymnastics, because the human body is a huge Tensegrity system where the workload is redistributed between the solid components and the flexible components, such as our muscles, ligaments, tendons. And if you understand that transfer of power, you can easily move your body by very minute muscle engagement, insignificant, if only you understand the transfer of power. If not, then you will have to do some additional movements in order to make your body move in that or another way, and that will not be beneficial to your functionality. You will be inefficient in the nature of your movements. So very important to get a very solid hold of the Tensegrity system, and in my other training videos I'm going to use this principle a lot, and I'm going to emphasize this principle a lot. Now, let's go back to the fact I mentioned before I gave you all these examples, that we have two kinds of elasticity. We have the, deformation. We have the elastic deformation and plastic deformation. Remember elastic deformation? Elastic deformation when the object bounces back to its normal state, at rest state, after the load is gone. The plastic deformation, where the object stays deformed permanently. Now that is a very interesting thing, especially for those of you who lift heavy, like 200 kilos off the floor, or squats, 350, whatever. Whenever we lift weights, we actually use the Tensegrity system principle. We use the tension in our ligaments and tendons to transfer the contractile force of our muscles onto the weights we lift. And you might have guessed, right, what I'm leading you to. If we use significant weights, then our ligaments and other connective tissue around our joints might get the plastic deformation, where they're stretched and they don't bounce back to its initial state, because we exceeded the structural limit of that matter, of that biological matter, limit of elasticity. And as the Hooke's law states, once the elasticity limit has been exceeded, the rule has no longer is no longer applicable. Now any force beyond this limit will only further exacerbate the deformation, and there will be no bounce back. So we need to bear in mind and be very careful with the heavy weights, because we don't really want to get to a state where for our joint, inside our joints, we have the plastic deformation of our connective tissue. That will cause permanent elongation of the connective tissue, permanent deformation of the ligaments. That will result in lack of stability in the joints. And from there, we go to absolutely catastrophic results. So just keep it in mind, be careful. Lift heavy, but lift smart, because we have a lot of examples of what can happen if we lift really heavy, especially without any safety precautions. So just keep it in mind. We don't really want to exceed the flexibility limit of our connective tissue, and such limit does exist. Any matter has its limits. Any matter, even the most elastic band has its limits. If you stretch it too much, it will snap, it will deform, and so on and so forth. So just keep it in mind. Now you know what the Tensegrity system is. It's a very simple physics, and we're going to use it a lot. So thank you very much, guys and girls. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Please let me know what you think, and I will see you in my next videos. Thank you very much. Trainer Maxim with you. Go enjoy your day. Bye-bye.